What's happening, everyone? Welcome to a special Friday edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. My name is James Lynch. It is NHL Trade Deadline Day today. We got a really fun show planned. I'm going to have multiple guests coming on the show today, reacting to all the trades, all the action that's happening. So it's going to be really interactive today. Get your questions in. We got a lot of trades that have already gone down. I'm going to be following along on the ticker here, the NHL Trade Deadline ticker. I suppose they could use that as a name if they wanted to shorten it a little bit, but we're already getting a lot of trades coming in here. Troy Noak is going to be joining me. I'm also going to be having a couple other guests to possibly react to the Josh Norris trade. That was another big one, I believe. I don't know if that's official yet, but just looking on the tracker here, still waiting to catch up on all that. But get your questions in. A lot of movement going on. We're going to be on here for about an hour and just react to all the trades. Of course, the deadline closing at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So obviously a lot of action going on. We got my good buddy Adam Martin. We got Cole Shelton, my other buddy here, two big hockey fans who cover MMA and the MMA side of things. So we got right now, looks like we got our good buddy, and look at this jersey he's wearing too. Got to give him full marks here. The great Troy Noak joining us here yet again. Troy, how you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. It's trade deadline day, one of my favorite days of the year. Can't stop scrolling on Twitter because it's so awesome.
Yeah, let's get the trade tracker here going, and I'm sending this link out to a couple different people because we're gonna have some guests hopping by here today because I want to make this interactive, man. Like there's a lot of trade deadline shows out here today. I want to get a lot of fan reaction if we can get that. Let me just find the link here for some reason. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing this. I'm gonna bring this here. Then we're going to share the screen. First and foremost, let's talk a little bit about some of the trades that have already gone down. I can't believe Anthony Beauvillier fetched a second-round draft pick. Have you ever, let's start there first, actually, because I think this sort of encompasses what we're seeing in the trade deadline. Have you seen a bigger seller's market than we're seeing this year in terms of what players are going for this season? I mean, Anthony Beauvillier was not getting a second-round pick last year. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's for sure, and I totally agree. And I'm hearing rumblings that Kyle Palmieri is about to re-sign with the New York Islanders. If Anthony Beauvillier is receiving a second-round pick in return, why can't Kyle Palmieri get a first-round pick? You know what I'm saying? Anthony Beauvillier, in my mind, isn't a player that warrants a second-round pick in return. But, hey, people that are really desperate and trust that their team could possibly make a run, they're willing to lose a trade to make an impact right now.
And looks like we got another guest coming on here. This is going to be one of those shows where things are going to be on the fly right now, but really happy to welcome back on the show one of my favorites. He is very much in tune with what's going on with the Buffalo Sabres. They made a big trade here today. I'm still waiting for the official details. Maybe you can help us out here. It's Mike Straw joining us here. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I don't know how I'm doing.
I know. This trade kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like this. So what do we know now? What is the official trade? Maybe you guys can help me out here because I just got back. But my understanding was Josh Norris is it Cousins? Who went the other way?
Yeah, so far nothing's official yet, but it looks like it's Cousins and a pick. No one knows the pick yet, which is going to be a big deal to Ottawa for Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
well, let's just get some immediate reaction from someone on the Buffalo sides of things. We know Dylan Cousins has been on the block for a little while. Do you like this? I think this is probably a good move other than obviously the injury concern for Josh Norris.
It's kind of, and a buddy of mine posted it, and it was the same thought I had in my mind. You know the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other?
Of course, yeah.
That is kind of where I equate at this point in what's going on, Norris and Cousins. Cousins has fallen off entirely. Like he got pummeled in a fight like a year and a half ago. And since he got it basically, I think, shattered whatever confidence he had at that point, because up to that point, he was Mr. Do everything for the Sabres and really seemed to be what was going to be a big part of that core. And ever since then, it just fell off. And Norris, on the other hand, just can't stay healthy. So we're looking at two players that have just fallen in ways that they aren't earning the big contracts they were signed to. Neither of them. One is more, you're injured. There's nothing. Can you really do anything about it? And the other is just, you can't get out of your own way. So it seems to me it's one of those pure, we need a change of scenery for both players and hope it works out for both teams. I'm much more confident in Cousins figuring it out than I am in Norris, solely because, availability is the best ability a player has. If Norris can't be healthy, then it's all a moot point, especially now you're paying Norris more than what you were paying Cousins.
What about the term, obviously, because Norris, I think he's up. Is he RFA or what's? I was trying to remember his contract. I don't have it here off the top of my head, but he doesn't have as much term as Cousins does, right? I think that's another key thing here.
It's the same. They both have 5 years. Norris got extended. Okay. Norris signed a couple years ago an 8-year, I think just under $64 million contract. So he's at like 7.9, where Cousins is at 7.1. JBD is an RFA after this year, who's also currently out injured on long-term IR with Ottawa. So he's coming in. Maybe he plays this year, probably not. But you're looking at a guy who's an RFA that the Sabres are going to maybe sign. Well, there we go. Wow. Yeah. Now I'm more mad.
Okay, there we go. This is why we're doing this. I want to get full reaction. Okay, so it looks like, and again, this is from Ryan Ledger. This is just one account I found. I actually don't follow him, but I'm just seeing what he apparently. We'll see if this is actually. By the way, something to keep in mind for today. There's a lot of fake accounts here, so let's make sure that this is 100% official. I'll wait till one of the big guys actually, puts this out there. But it looks like Cousins, Gilbert, second round pick, and actually, we got my buddy Adam coming on here too. Adam, you can chime in as well. We're talking just quickly about this Dylan Cousins trade here. But yeah, so it looks like Cousins, Gilbert, second round pick for Norris, and Jacob Bernard Docker. But I want to get Mike's reaction to this here quickly. Why is this worse in your opinion? I want to hear it because of the pick as well.
So the pick, I don't like it being a second round pick. Granted, it's not this year's draft, it's next year's. I don't like that at all. The Gilbert position, this might come from a little bias because I've followed Dennis Gilbert since he was in high school when I worked for a local paper. He's a local kid. When I worked for the local weekly newspaper, he was a player at the high school that I covered, so I saw him regularly, both on the ice and on the football field where he played. But Gilbert was a player that whenever he was in the lineup, Buffalo always talks about we need players that are tough to play against. Gilbert was that player for them. He was one of the tougher defensemen for the Sabres to play against. And Ottawa need the same thing. A lot of the talk this morning was, especially from people around the Senators, was they felt Norris and JBD just weren't hard enough to play against. I don't know they're getting that in Cousins. They might. Maybe they reignite that fire that really showed from 3-4 years ago. But Gilbert is that. The pick thing, I don't like the idea. If you're giving up more assets when you're trading away a core piece of your team who has fallen off a bit, I don't know. I just don't. Cadman Adams is clearly being taken advantage of by a lot of teams in the NHL right now because the Sabres are a train wreck. And this is kind of just proving that point, in my opinion.
And the timing on this is perfect because I got my buddy Andrew Stein from the Hockey News, who's an Ottawa guy, now going to get the Ottawa side of this thing. It looks like we've got more details on the trade here, Andrew. It looks like Cousins, Gilbert, second round pick, going for Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker. Your thoughts on the trade from an Ottawa perspective? Oh, we don't have any audio, unfortunately, from Andrew, but he'll work on it here. But now we got him. What's up? Oh, still don't have him. What's going on with the audio? You guys can't hear him either, right? I can't hear him.
No.
So we'll figure it out. You just got to go to your gear, and then once you go to your gear, you go to the audio, and then it should show your audio levels there for some reason. But we'll get Andrew's reaction in a second. We had that so perfectly, so it's all good. We'll get it now. Andrew, are you good, or are you still working on it? No, okay, 1 second. Yeah, we'll wait on it. But so I mean, this looks like a lateral.
Speechless.
He's
absolutely speechless.
Yeah, exactly. As we're sort of getting all this in. One other thing I'll ask you quickly while I got you here, Mike, as well.
You got me?
We're not going to keep you too long. Yeah, we got you now. Andrew Stein, the great Andrew Stein of the Hockey News. Let us know your thoughts on this trade.
Well, first off, I've got my Norris jersey in the back with the Buffalo Sabres hat that I picked up at a Buffalo game. I always have to pick up a hat whenever I go see another team.
Of course. Like me. Yeah.
Before I go on, is my mic too hot?
You're good. Can hear you great.
My initial thoughts are I'm actually quite interested what they're going to do with the $2 million in cap space they're gaining, because Cousins makes almost $1 million less than Norris. Jacob Bernard Docker's right just under a mil there, and they have $850,000 in cap space, which might mean a Ryan Donato or perhaps a Brandon Tanev. There's a little more wiggle room to add here. So by the trade deadline, my opinions might be invalidated. But for what I did over here, I do think that Norris has been oft injured, but still's got a real nice ceiling to him. He's still young. We've seen players in the past recover from these kind of shoulder ailments to have very strong careers. My immediate concern from an Ottawa perspective is upsetting the apple cart. Ottawa just didn't have Norris in the lineup for 5 games, and they lost all 5. 2 against Tampa, 1 against Florida. Norris and Brady Tkachuk are childhood friends, so it takes a lot of chutzpah to make a move like this when you're literally 1 point up on a wild card spot and haven't made the playoffs in 7 years, right? You're making that big adjustment to what players like. How are the players going to feel about that, right? And with something else coming back the other way, they're both former 30-goal scorers who are not having anywhere near point per game seasons. So hopefully the team reacts well. That's the biggest concern from an Ottawa perspective, I would think.
Yeah, I can say this. Sorry,
let's hear it.
sorry.
No,
James.
go ahead.
I can say this on the Cousins side. They will fall in love with him as a person from a teammate perspective. I don't see that being an issue whatsoever. I think they might be the sting of losing Norris as a friend. Sure. Cousins will come in and will endear himself to the team, whether he endears himself to the fans. If you get the last 18 months, Dylan Cousins, you'll want him out of town by the end of the season. If you get the 2 years prior to that, you'll be wondering why the Sabres were not making the playoffs at all. Because granted, this is how bad it's been in Buffalo. Our highlight is missing the playoffs 2 years ago by 1 point. During that season, Cousins was just shining. Him and Thompson just looked like there's your core. There's your top 2 centers for the next 10 years. And so you know it's there. It's just, can they get it out of him? And maybe having a teammate like a Brady Tkachuk, who's very just the type of player the Sabres wanted Cousins to be, I think could actually benefit him in the long run. As a Sabres fan, it sucks, but I get why the move was done. But if I'm the Sabres, like I'm dealing everyone. Like I'm also in that point. There's no one off on the untouchable list. Like if a team calls me for Rasmus Dahlin today, sure, make an offer. Like the core has been the core, and you say Ottawa hasn't made it in 7 years. Double that. There we go. Like, I just can't. Like, no one's untouchable.
That brings me just quickly. I wanted to get into this, and this does kind of tie to what Buffalo's doing today. I did see they re-signed Jason Zucker, 2 years, $4.75. Do you like this move, Mike? Obviously, you don't want to get rid of everyone. Look what's going on in Chicago right now. Bedard's having a terrible season. They're trying to put people together, and it's not really working out. But also, you want to get the most value you can at this time of year. What are your thoughts on Zucker re-signing?
Absolutely love it. I was calling for it. They signed him to a 1 year, $5 million deal last year. And my thought at that time was it should have been longer. And about a month into the season, my thought was they need to make sure he doesn't leave. The fact they got him less cap per year than what they had him for this year is kind of surprising. I would expect him to go, you know what, you're bad. And his agent try and take advantage of it. But he's become a well-respected player in that in the organization, and to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me. It's only a 2 year deal, but I honestly think this is a player that if things finally turn around in Buffalo, he's just going to keep signing these 2 year deals and remaining. He's just fit in perfectly and found he looks like a young Jason Zucker again, to where he's putting up the numbers. He is reliable. The team looks terrible when he's not on the ice. Granted, they look terrible when he is on the ice, but that's just everybody else. But he's a perfect fit for what they need. So it's one of those. I'm happy they did it. They extended Greenway a couple days ago. I
saw that. I love Jordan Greenway. I was like, damn it, because that's a guy I'd like to see in Vancouver, or see. That I think was a very good pickup for you guys a couple seasons back. Getting him, I really like him a lot.
A good deal, yes, but I think he's not a player you continue to keep around when you're trying to find an answer to turn things around. He is if he was if he was a player that was in part of the deal to Ottawa or sent to Vancouver or a team fighting for a playoff spot and getting into the playoffs, that's a perfect player, not a team that is at the bottom of the league type of signing.
Andrew, you had something you were going to say. We'll get to that, and then I want to get a last sort of Buffalo thing from here, Mike, and then we'll kind of go beyond this. But Andrew, what were you going to say before Mike went on his thing?
I was going to mention Jacob Bernard Docker and how the Buffalo fans feel about that one. Funny story about Bernard Docker is Ottawa traded down to get 2 picks, and the pick they traded became K'Andre Miller on the Rangers. So he was sitting right there. They moved 4 picks down. They picked Jake Bernard Docker. He had a stellar World Juniors, and he just hasn't been able to stick in Ottawa. But he's kind of one of those jack of all trades defensemen that I've noticed. Like, he can move the puck okay, but Erik Karlsson, he ain't, right? He can defend okay, but Chris Pronger, he isn't, right? You know, like, just one of those tweener guys. And the unfortunate thing for him is I don't think he's been able to outplay Travis Hamonic of all people this year, right? So I think that's somebody that Buffalo could really benefit from giving a fresh opportunity to, maybe a little chip on his shoulder. I was wondering Mike's thoughts on that throw in there.
The defense is the worst defense in the NHL. So anything that can try and improve it, I think is necessary. I don't like the idea of trading for someone who's not going to likely play for your team this year.
Yeah.
When he's an RFA. So you are going to have to extend a player that you know nothing about on your lineup. And that's, I think that's what's holding me. Maybe they get lucky and they can bring him back somehow and they can put him on a conditioning stint in Rochester, which that would be great because if there's anything going well in the organization, the Sabres AHL affiliate is the #1 team in the AHL right now. They are cruising. Devin Levi, the hopeful goalie of the future, is playing at MVP levels for the AHL right now. So maybe they can put him down there, show him, get him, comfortable enough. And then you see kind of what you might get next year. But the idea of trading for someone you won't get to see mesh with an Owen Power or Dahlin or anything like that is kind of, it confuses me, especially for what you ended up giving up.
Well, he is a right-hander, so that slots into the lineup a little better. But how does a defense that has Byram, Dahlin, and Power rank as the worst? And I know the answer to that question because last year Ottawa had Sanderson, Shabbat, and Chychrun, and there was just no mesh there at all. Chychrun was like a -30. He's killing it in Washington this year. And so sometimes it's just fit, right? But I was wondering, how does that happen, right? Like,
too much offense on the defense. That's basically what it comes down to. Owen Power cannot play in front of his own net. He needs somebody to bail him out time and time again, and the Sabres don't have that. Matthias Samuelsson was supposed to be that, but he is as made of glass as anybody in the league has been the last couple of years. So it's, if they can get somebody to pair with a Power or a Byram, then they're good. Dahlin can do it all. Dahlin, you put anybody with him. Dahlin is just here. But
maybe JBD blossoms as that guy. He was a first-round pick within 5 years ago. So
yeah, that's obviously what they're hoping for. It's just, will it? Who knows? I don't think the Sabres are done though. I know they're trying to move on Henry Jokiharju. They're getting a lot of calls on Alex Tuck, who they believed was going to be the core, but man, has the Eichel trade ever backfired for the Sabres? But I think the Sabres aren't done in trying to make some sort of move. They're not going to just sell. I think they're trying to make one more hockey trade today.
Troy, I actually want you to chime in here. I know you and I have been talking in our DMs about, isn't Columbus one of the teams that's in on Tuck? What kind of just switching gears here, because we spent a lot of time talking about this as well, but just wanted to get your perspective on this trade and then also, the Tuck rumors as well.
Yeah, I was actually wondering, I was going to ask Mike the question, what do you think Tuck's likelihood to be dealt is now after this Cousins trade? Because the Columbus Blue Jackets are lacking in right-handed shots in the forward group. They only have Matthew Olivier, Justin Danforth, and Marchenko. And Don Waddell obviously says he's not going to improve his team for rentals. If he wants to acquire anyone, they're not going to be a center. They're going to be a winger, and they have to kind of fit the age and contract structure. And the names listed, linked with the Blue Jackets, were Alex Tuck, Ricardo Kell, and Brandon Tanev.
I think Tuck's chances of being dealt have fallen like under 50. I thought it was 50-50. And the reason I think it's fallen is because of how well he's played lately. He's got 8 goals in his last 9 games. He's up to 24 on the season. If he was going to be traded, I think Buffalo might have traded him a week or so ago. I think now it has to be, you have to blow us away to give up a guy who has made it clear he wants to be with the Sabres. So I think it's going to be tough for them to I think it's going to be tough for them to trade away a player who also has he's got a 5-team no trade list. So it's not the biggest no trade list, but I think it dropped. Not because of the Cousins deal, but just because of how he's been performing lately. Unless they get a team like a Columbus, a fringe team that's like, he can put us over the top to get us back in, and they blow him out of the water. But I don't think, even if somebody offers 2 first-round picks or a first-round pick, I don't think that alone would get it done.
Let's move on a little bit from the Sabres. Again, this is a big trade, so we can certainly talk a little bit more about it. But Adam, I wanted to get you in on here. I know you hopped on here. Obviously, you got the Leafs there in the background. And Adam, not a hockey insider, but I wanted to get him on here. He's a guy that follows the sport quite well here. Are the Leafs going to do anything here today? We're hearing now that there was a possibility, it looks like, of the Leafs possibly getting Laughton from Philly. But right now, there hasn't been a ton of movement there. You got to think Tree Living's going to do something, just with the fact that this is a team that notoriously is disappointed in the playoffs. They got to make some sort of move. Anything you're keeping an eye on for the Leafs, or what you would like to see happen here?
I almost wonder, guys, what's worse, making the playoffs every year, getting bounced in the first round, or not making it at all? It's brutal,
It depends. It depends on what it is or how many times it's happened. I'll take bouncing out of the first round right now.
I mean, there was a decade where the Leafs were a bottom team anyway, so I remember those years. It's really quiet right now, James, which makes me think that he's got to have something cooking right now. There's got to be something going on. I don't think they're going to make a huge move, though. I feel like they'll make a depth move. We talked about a little bit in DMs, James, like a Brandon Tanev, something like that. Not someone that really moves the needle, but I don't know how much the Leafs really need. They have a really good team right now. They have a solid team. And the problem is, if you get rid of these young prospects like a Minton or a Cowan, these are the guys you need because they are on these ELC contracts. And
for the cap,
look next year, Marner's a free agent. He's going to want probably $14 million. Tavares is a free agent. I thought he was going to maybe get a $4 million, $5 million deal. James, we talked about this a little bit. Now I've been hearing some of the insiders saying maybe $7 million for him. And is he worth it? Probably. But again, I know the cap's going up, guys, but there's just too many older players are making a lot of money. So you need those younger guys that don't make a ton of money. So I don't know if I want to even make one of those big splashes and get a Brayden Schenn. Everyone's talking about him on the radio, right? That's the big name, but it will cost you probably Minton and next year's first round pick. They already gave up this year's first round pick for the Jake McCabe trade 2 years ago, which actually worked out really well for the Leafs. He's been great. But I think, James, they'll probably do something like a third line center type guy,
which I think is fine. I don't think you need to tweak with it too much. Remember I'm going back a number of seasons ago. Remember they gave up, wasn't it a first they gave up for Nick Foligno, only for him to walk in the off season, right? So things like that'll happen too. I do admire, as much as I'm not. You guys know this. All of you know this about me. I'm not a big Oilers guy, but I do give them credit here. Getting Jake Wallman yesterday. I'm just looking here at the trade board. The Edmonton is kind of making these moves. They got Trent. They obviously got what's the center from the Flyers, Trent Boston, the guy that they got as well. Edmonton's kind of loading up a little bit. I still think they need a goaltender, but that's we'll see how the Skinner-Pickard tandem goes. But I give Edmonton credit because at least they've got this group and they don't know how long it's going to go for. So I like.
Let me jump in really quick on that.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Mike Greer did some really good business here too, guys. He got a second-round pick with Wallman last year as a cap dump, and then they traded him for a first-round pick. He got 2 really high picks for free, basically. Obviously, San Jose's in a rebuilding stage, but you need those picks. So I think he's done a pretty good job. I know the team's in last place, right? But they'll get better in the future. But yeah, James, I mean, just look, these prices are honestly ridiculous, guys. Wallman for a first round pick is kind of nuts, but again, like you said, James, seller's market, right? There's not many guys available. I did see Scott Laughton is not practicing today. That's another guy the Leafs have been kind of in on. But again,
that would be a good move.
That's probably going to cost you your first round pick or Minton, or maybe both too. Even for a guy that, he's a pretty good player, but we'll see. But anyways, I just wanted to give my thoughts as a Leaf fan, not an insider.
No, of course.
But I just don't know what they're going to do here, James. I don't think it'll be anything crazy. But again, Brad Treliving, I do trust the guy. I think he's a good GM, and we'll see what happens. I want to give my thoughts, guys. I'll let you guys do your thing. I'll tune in, James. I gotta get back to work. But
you can keep posting questions in the chat too, Adam. Absolutely. So thanks for having you on, Adam. That's great. While I got the rest of you guys here, What's going to happen with Mikko Rantanen? I feel like every couple of minutes I'm refreshing my X feed and I'm seeing nothing's, it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. Elliot Friedman, there's framework in place for a trade. We'll start with you, Troy. What's your gut feeling here? Do you think the Canes hold on to him and just bite the bullet and go for a run and then let him walk? Or do you think they do make this trade? Because it seems like there aren't many teams that can really accommodate a Mikko Rantanen trade.
My gut feeling is that they're going to end up trading him.
Okay.
After seeing the Eric Tulsky interviews, it's clear that he's not afraid of taking on huge risk and approaching these things with unconventional methods, as we've seen. But I don't know. There's a lot of GMs that might be trying to use a lot of leverage, knowing that they're a little worried that he's not going to re-sign. So we'll see how it ultimately transpires. But the two teams.
Whoa, we got an update, guys. Look at this, Darren Drager. This is why I love doing this show. Shout out to Adam, who was just on here. He sent me this DM. An extensive back and forth is about to end with the Dallas Stars acquiring and extending Mikko Rantanen. Not done, but I believe he's settling for $12 million as discussed. How good is Dallas getting right now? My God.
Settling.
Yeah.
Settling.
I know it's settling. I know it's true. It's true. I want to know what's going back the other way.
That's the huge thing, because Carolina already gave up Martin Necas, which when they made the trade for Rantanen, I thought it was terrible to begin with, because I just look at where they are in their careers at this point and the money. I would have kept Necas, and look what Necas has done in Colorado since he got to Colorado, and Rantanen did next to nothing. Like, if Rantanen was world beating in Carolina, I think they'd be like, you know what, he's our trade deadline acquisition, he's our rental, and we're going to win a cup with him. He hasn't fit in where the way Necas had. So yeah, what Dallas, this is going to be a multi first round pick deal. Like, there's what else does Dallas have to give? I don't think.
Well, let's even look at like I think on Puckpedia it does tell us the picks that they have. So I don't think they have much as far as like actual picks. I might be wrong about that, but I'm looking here. Oh no, never mind. So
How
they got their
points
first.
Did Rantanen have with Carolina? Like 3, 4?
Yeah, not many. I know.
Wild.
So yeah. So that's. I mean, listen, the one thing I'll say, and you guys let me know what you think. I feel like one of the reasons Dallas hasn't gotten over the hump over the last couple of years is because they haven't made a big sort of superstar trade, right? Like, they got Tanev last year. They made a couple of moves here and there over the last couple of years, but they haven't made like a superstar trade like this. I don't know if it's going to work out. It might be a terrible mistake, but I at least admire them for taking a swing like Vegas has done so many years in a row, and it finally got them a Stanley Cup. So I wonder if Dallas is sort of having the same thinking here, but looks like they do have a lot of picks, guys. So I think they'll be okay making this one happen.
Sagan's probably got to be going the other way just for cap.
Cap?
I would think so. But
yeah, we'll see.
Someone has to. Yeah, and the Rantanen, you brought up how he did. I think he's averaging like half a point a game. I think he's only got like 5 or 6 points in 13 games. 6 points in 13 games, if my mind.
This is like the era of like big bold moves blowing up in management's faces. This is like the Trump tariffs of hockey trades. Like, it's just like,
as someone on this side of the border, I'd like to not be depressed right now. If you guys if one of y'all want to sponsor me to come up there, I live in Buffalo. It's not like I'm far. Like,
Mississauga, I'm not that far either.
Yeah, you guys are pretty close actually. So yeah, I guess we'll just let's wait. Sorry to interrupt you, Troy, but we'll
I have
just
a feeling that Dallas is probably going to send back a left-handed defenseman because they have so many good players on the left-handed side of their defense. And as you've alluded to before with the Ottawa Senators situation, when you have too much power on one side, it really isn't balanced and works out. You really need guys to suit their role. And although Heiskanen's injured, I would probably assume that Lian Bichel's one of the guys potentially going back to Carolina.
He's under. He's still on his entry level, right? He just signed it.
Mm-hmm. And he had a stint up in the NHL recently, so the NHL team's got to see a little bit of what it'll look like at the top level.
Yeah, just furiously checking the Twitter sphere and seeing if we have any sort of update on this trade. I guess we'll just sort of keep an eye on it. But if Dallas gets this, I mean, this is going to be a huge part of trade deadline, obviously, if that domino goes. Obviously, there's some other trades out here, guys. Anything stand out to you? Obviously, the big one yesterday was Brock Nelson going to the Avs. The Avs are certainly making a push this year. Any other deals? Feel free to just jump in here if there's any deals that really... I mean, Tampa Bay cleaned up a couple days ago, too. Troy, you and I discussed this. Anything stand out to you guys? Sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
For me, it seems to be that Boston's tapping out. like getting rid of a lot of their depth. Apparently Marchand's on the trade block. I don't think anything's happened with him there yet. As an Atlantic Division fan, I am happy to see that personally. So I thought that was quite interesting. Do you guys feel like the Brock Nelson deal means the Islanders are kind of like throwing in the towel for this season too? Or do you like Kylington seems useful, like
I live on Long Island. The majority of my friends are Islanders fans. I think this is really a good deal for both teams. But the Islanders fans are happy because they are truly sick and tired of Lou Lamoriello signing these guys until they need to leave in wheelchairs, more or less. And Brock Nelson's a 34-year-old player. Yeah, he's fantastic, but there's a lot of real Stanley Cup contending teams that could use a reliable 2C. And I bring this up every year. Brock Nelson has more or less been able to score 30-plus goals with horrible wingers as his line mates at even strength. So to see him on a line with Drouin and Nichushkin is going to be absolutely insane. And I would assume he's going to take on that right faceoff circle spot on the power play where he has on the Islanders the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Islanders, I don't know if they're giving up yet because I know it came out earlier that they're not planning on trading Palmieri, and I feel maybe that would be the sign of they're done if they continued to trade off like their top scorers on the roster. So I think maybe they're 4 points out as of now. They're not done. It's just they have to go on. They have to go on a little run. They have to jump 4 teams just to get there. Boston is the team where they know they're done. Swayman has not looked. I mean, we kind of had that feeling at the start of the season with how the Swayman negotiations went, that he was not at training camp. It just felt like this was going to be the season. It finally went off the rails for Boston, and it has. And the Montgomery firing, like that was just, to me, still I don't know how you do that, because you fired Cassidy to bring in Montgomery. Cassidy goes and wins a cup in his the first year elsewhere. Montgomery is getting the Blues on a push to make a playoff run again. And I'm just sitting there as Boston. If you're a Boston fan, you go, really? This is what we're doing now? Especially because Boston is. Did
you hear the conspiracy theory on that, by the way? I don't know if you guys have heard this, that Montgomery basically wanted to get fired. Because here's what I heard. I'm throwing it out here to the universe here. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. My understanding is I heard this theory, and I don't know if it adds up, but basically he wanted to sign an extension in Boston. They were apart on term, and so he basically imploded on his own, knowing that there was going to be offers out there for him anyways. Because remember how quickly he got picked up by St. Louis. So he has this conflict with Marchand and all that, knowing that it's only going to escalate things, and he gets out of there. He gets what he wants money-wise with St. Louis, and he's out of Boston. What do you guys think of that?
Smart man.
Yeah, I know.
Malicious compliance to get yourself fired to a better
Luke Schenn to Winnipeg, guys, according to Adam, who's just in here.
Ooh, wow.
Nice pickup. Let's
Winnipeg. Remember when Winnipeg was supposed to be a bottom 5 team this year?
Yeah. Let me find it. Okay,
now they're challenging for the President's Trophy.
I gotta pull these tweets up in real time. That's a great move for Winnipeg.
Boston was a victim, I think, of their own success over the last decade or so. Like Bergeron couldn't play anymore. He's gone. Krejci couldn't play anymore. He's gone. They didn't replace them with equivalent players because who's the equivalent player to Patrice Bergeron? Like unicorn player, right? So I think it's just chickens coming home to roost. And Montgomery probably saw, if your conspiracy theory is to be believed, he probably saw the writing on the wall. Like my number one center is Charlie Coyle. Brad Marchand's on the wrong side of 35, and I just lost my Vezina winning goalie, who, granted, you have another Vezina candidate, not this year, but in Swayman, but something again, upsetting the apple cart, the point I was making before with Norris, right? Like sometimes you just play best with other people, and goalies are no different there, right? So, but mostly I think Boston's going to probably do a huge sell-off, but they're still a desirable market, original 6 team. They'll be able to attract talent in the years to come, and they can frustrate Leafs and Sens fans and Buffalo fans for decades to come after that anyway. So,
I got to point out just quickly.
Fans.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No team frustrates Sabres fans more than the Sabres. I do have, James, you brought up your little theory, your conspiracy. I have a theory on the success of the Sabres and why they haven't been good. Okay.
Let's hear it.
The Buffalo Bills, perennial Super Bowl contenders right now, have Josh Allen, a Josh. Now, indoor lacrosse is huge here. The Buffalo Bandits, back-to-back champions, selling out 19,000. The Bandits lacrosse averages more in attendance than the Sabres. Just saying. They have a reigning MVP, Josh Byrne. The Sabres had no Josh. Now they do. So now what's going to happen is the Sabres are going to go on a run, win every game, and win the cup because they got a Josh. Like that's my stupid theory I'm hanging to. Like
it's a Josh with a 2-syllable last name.
Oh my God, Josh Allen, Josh Byrne. Oh, now Burns
No,
one.
so
Burns
close.
a 1-syllable. Damn, we can make it 2 if we wanted to, but
That's my English degree from Carleton University talking right there. By the way, quick shout out to Warratron. My high school buddy Warren is in the chat.
Love it. Yeah, keep the questions coming. So yeah, just quickly, it looks like Luke Shen. By the way, thanks Adam to posting this in the chat. He was keeping us posted. Apparently, Luke Shen to Winnipeg for a 2nd-round pick and 4th-round pick. He got what was it, a couple seasons ago? Canucks got what, 4th round from the Leafs. Now Luke Shen's going for a 2nd round. That's pretty impressive. So Winnipeg, and now you can see here Winnipeg apparently in on Brandon Tanev as well. So not messing around here. The Winnipeg Jets. What do you guys think?
They have to figure out how to win a playoff series. That's what it comes down to. We talk about making the playoffs all the time and then losing. Winnipeg, Hellebuck remains the best regular season goalie I've ever seen play.
Yeah.
I've never. If he had any ounce of that playoff success, I think he'd be a goalie we talk about by the end of his career as one of the top 5 goalies of all time. But that playoff success has never come. It has to happen. And I think we're looking at the time where Cheveldayoff knows this year. This is the year no one expected Winnipeg to be as good as they are, and they're a top team in the NHL, not just in the West. This has to be the year they make a run.
I think Connor Hellebuck in every single high stakes series or moment, he has been outplayed by the other goalie. 4 Nations, playoffs. So he has all the tools, but maybe you wonder what's going on between the ears there, right? Like something in high pressure moments. Like he didn't just you lost every game last year by 1 goal. What was his goals against average? I think it was 4 something, 5 something in the playoff series last year, and just totally imploded. So that would be my biggest concern as a Jets fan. And you don't have Laurent Brossoit backing him up.
I like Brossoit, by the way. He's solid.
The grown in a lab to be the ideal 1B goalie in the NHL is that guy.
One quick thing I wanted to throw on here. We didn't get to this earlier, but this could have a ripple effect with the Rantanen news. Frank Stellar Valley about 40 minutes ago sounding like trade talks are picking up on Brock Besser. So just to give the quick Vancouver perspective here, fans will, I don't want to use the word riot because that's actually happened a couple times here in Vancouver, but I'm telling you, fans will turn on management so quickly if Besser is not traded. There's this thought that management, that ownership wants to get in the playoffs, so they're treating Brock Besser like them getting their own rental. But I'm telling you, if he does not get traded or signed, fans are going to be just completely upset. So this is very good news. You'd have to think with how much, it's a seller's market right now that Brock should at least fetch a 1st-round pick. I think the big thing is obviously the extension with him being a UFA here, but just curious, Troy, you and I have talked a bunch about this, but curious to get Mike and Andrew's take on this as an outsider. What do you make of this Brock Besser move? Because he hasn't been having that great of a season either.
Yeah, and I feel like this year specifically, where it's alleged that this draft class is not very deep, it seems like the returns are fetching around earlier than a lot of the people normally would have, as we referred to before. Anthony Beauvillier, we couldn't believe he returned a 2nd-round pick, but that's most likely because of the lack of depth in the draft class. And I feel like Brock Besser has to get a 1st-round draft pick just because of these returns some of these players are getting, because they're so peculiar to me.
Yeah. We'll see. Well, Mike and Andrew, just thoughts on Brock Besser and his availability. Yeah,
the availability makes sense. I thought everybody thought the Pettersson trade was going to happen. I never believed that for a second. It might, because you brought up they want to make the playoffs. You don't trade EP if
they won't have a center. Here's the thing that people don't get. I even heard people being like, well, you can just do Pettersson for Rantanen. Who's going to pass the puck to him? They don't have a center. Philip Cheeto would be your first first line center. You need a center. As much as Pettersson's been terrible, you at least need something down the middle, guys. People never look at the positioning, So
the Besser deal, it has to be. I think any team that trades for him has to be in a Rantanen situation where we'll trade for him, but we need an extension to do the deal. So let us talk to it. And I think that's where, when Saravelli says trade talks are picking up, it's all right, we got a few teams that are interested, try and work out an extension, and then we'll go from there. I just don't see the way this season is gone, what a team is going to be willing to give up for a Brock Besser, seeing how his play is falling. I know plus minus isn't everything, but I think
but you're right. He's like a minus 16 or something. Yeah.
It's dropped about I think a 30.
Oh, is it really? Let me go check right now. Yeah.
Well, just a drop from last season. Last season, if not more, I think he was like a plus 20 or something last year. Yeah, this year, he's hovering around that. So we're looking at a 30 to 40 plus minus drop in a season. And again, it's not everything, but when it's that big of a drop, it's a sign of what's happening. And it could just be a case, you brought up the Montgomery theory of he wanted to get fired. Maybe Besser just really wants out that bad that he's just like coasting.
No. You know what I think it is, because I don't know, just someone who because again, Besser's been with the Canucks since the beginning. I think he really does want to stay here. I think he wants to get the same deal that JT Miller got before they traded him, that Pettersson's getting. He wants long term, and I think the Canucks are looking at him going, look, you've only really had one outstanding season. That's a lot to kind of bet on. Not to mention he's not a great skater. The plus minus here, I'll tell you to you right now. 2022-2023 season minus 20. Last season plus 23. This season, minus 20. So you're right. I mean, that's a liability. But, and then one other thing I'll just add here quickly. No JT Miller. I think that's really hurt Besser as of late. He was sort of the setup man for Miller. You take Miller out of there. Now you're working with whoever it is, Cheadle or I guess Pierce Suter or even Pettersson. I know they've kind of put him on the line sometimes. That's also done it. But that's just it. I think it just shows Besser's not I can do it myself guy. He's a setup guy, and you need a center that can utilize that, right? So.
Yeah, I just wonder what somebody be willing to give up. Granted, you're getting a player who has, I think, not counting his rookie season when he only played 10 games or 9 games or whatever, but he's gotten at least 45 points in every season he's had. So he's gotten consistent scoring. It's just, what team can part with a piece that would make him fit for a rental? Would you trade that for a rental? Because I think, and this is going way back, I think of a Besser type of deal, a Danis Zubris type deal with the Sabres in 2006, 2007.
Nice
That's
reference.
way back
like
deal.
that.
Deep cut. I love it.
Zubris was brought in historically really productive. Brought in as a rental to get the Sabres to the finals. Did not do a thing. Produced next to zero.
Big trade. Scott Laughton to the Leafs. Sorry, guys. Per David, let's hold on. It's David Pagnotta. I like the guy and everything, but he's been wrong a few times. So let's just double check on that. But I want to see, is that all he said, or I guess we got to find out what. I'm going to look up the tweet here right now. But sorry, go ahead, Mike. Though, but we're going to kind of just interject with these trades.
Not to interrupt, but the player you're describing for the Ottawa equivalent is Peter Bondra.
Yes, I was thinking of that too. Yes, that's right. When they got
traded for Brooks their future captain for a decade.
Yeah, you get those deals and you think it's going to work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. And I feel like Brock Besser might be that. I'm not saying he's not going to go somewhere else and be a success. I just don't know if Brock Besser rental works. That's why I think
here's the other side of this too, guys.
Sign him.
Yeah. I was going to say, here's the other side to this too. What did they do with the JT Miller trade? As soon as they got that first round pick, couple minutes later, they send him to Pittsburgh to get Marcus Pettersson. I think they're looking for the same deal because, again, I think as much as I think Rutherford and Alvin are looking at this and going, okay, we need to look ahead to the future, they also want to make the playoffs. They're close. I think they're a point behind Calgary right now. So, and I don't agree with that. I'm of the belief, just so everyone knows here, sell. This isn't, even if they get in the playoffs, it's not worth it. They're going to get creamed. They're going to get smashed by, whoever's first in the league. They're going to make the wild card. So you might as well look ahead to next year. You don't have a healthy Quinn Hughes. You don't have a healthy Thatcher Demko. Sell what you can now. It's a good seller's market. All their UFAs should be out of here if they're not re-signing them. But I was just going to mention that I think the Canucks, the reason I think what's holding all this up is I think they're looking for a third party to do a three-way trade. Because I think if the Canucks had it in a perfect world, they maybe get a pick from whatever team's going to get Besser, but then they flip that pick to get a roster player right now, which is so tough to do. I mean, they were even lucky to do it with Pittsburgh and Pettersson, right?
So can we go back real quick on the Rantanen deal?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it looks like it's going to happen. He's going to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
Still don't know what's going to happen there, but 8 years, $12 million per year. He turned down $12.5 million per year from Carolina because he wanted more. He turned down 12 from Colorado. This is a case of state taxes in the United States.
I know.
Winning out because he's bound to make what? By signing the same deal, he's going to make 4 or 5, maybe 6 million more just because of where he plays. This is something that the NHL really is going to have to figure out what they're going to do because it's just going to, it's clearly becoming a bigger decision maker for players than ever. And you're starting to wonder if teams are going to start doing the baseball route with the Dodgers and deferring contracts that pay out after a player retires to save tax money.
Well, because this would be 2 years in a row that this has happened essentially to Carolina. Because Getzel, that's part of the reason he went to Tampa Bay, was I think the same thing. They don't have the state tax thing there either, if I'm not mistaken, right? Isn't that the same thing? Like you can make more money. So that's part of the reason I think Getzel.
Texas, Tennessee, and Florida.
Wow. Okay. So
on the flip side of that, though, like speaking from a Canadian team perspective, though, like aren't you, if you're getting paid in American dollars and all your expenses are in Canadian dollars, right? Doesn't that close that gap? Plus the endorsements you can get playing for a Canadian team versus, sorry, Dallas Stars are not going to have as many endorsement opportunities as Austin Matthews is an extreme example, but I see that guy's face on every bus, billboard, TV commercial, and tampon package in the grocery store. Like that guy is everywhere. Like I'm sure whatever he's losing on Ontario taxes is going to come up. It does get balanced out in that way, right? So I think like with the taxes thing, I think it's GMs not doing their job necessarily. And my job is hard. So I can't make a trade because making trades is hard. And I'm like, well, it's your job. Like going back to the Canucks, like it's wild to me how they went from second round.
One game away from going to the second round. Yeah. One game.
Third round.
Third round. And if Brock Besser plays in that game, maybe they do go to the third round. Because remember, he didn't play. He had the blood clot.
And less than a year later, we're selling low on everybody. And
it was the PDO bender, man. If you go look at you know what it is though. Looking back now, it was the PDO bender. That's what it was. If you go look at the stats, like they set like a record last year for like PDO. Like their stats were like totally inflated. Like they were getting goals that they weren't supposed to get. They had a healthy Demko for most of the season. It just everything fit together. And then I think and the other thing that I think is very much, I mean, it's not as big of a talking point, but you know they were getting good goaltending too. Like this year, Lankinen's been great. He hasn't been Thatcher Demko great, but he's been good enough that like the Canucks are even talking about being in a playoff spot. At the beginning of the season, the Canucks were going in with Arthur Silovs and Yuri Patera, who they got from Vegas. If that would have stayed intact, there's no way there'd even be a discussion about the Canucks in the playoffs because they've actually been getting decent goaltending. But I think it's just that whole combination of like the goaltending was good, everything was going in. You know, there was lots of like they just all the pieces fit, and then like there's no you're right though because there's no explanation for you lose what Zadorov and Lindholm who came in late in the season and Ian Cole. Like that's not the reason they're playing bad. I think just it was. I hate to say it was a fluke last year. It really was. I think that's what
kind of. But again, you look at the job that the Canucks management is doing compared to Colorado, right? Like the Rantanen trade aside, like they identified, hey, our goaltending is terrible. This guy in San Jose doesn't have great stats, but we've watched and he has no defense in front of him. Bring him in. Blackwood's been money since, right? Like sometimes you just gotta cut the losses before it gets out into the media. And the Canucks totally failed at that, right? Yeah. Like this JT Miller thing didn't just pop up, right? No. Like this must have you got to know what's going on in your room. Right. Again, apple cart stuff. Right. But anyway, not entirely sure where I was going with that other than,
it's weird. Trust me. A lot of people, and I was going to say a lot of people are like dumbfounded by what's happened this year, but it's all the things that have all the things that they had no injuries last year. They had this PDO bender. Everything was working out. This year, Demko's out. Dakota Joshua had testicular cancer, has not been anywhere good to what he was last year. Understandable, obviously. JT Miller, his hard love approach with Pettersson when he's not playing well doesn't work. That caused a riff. Apparently there was an incident with Miller and a trainer. That's what led to the trade, evidently, which, and I still think that them signing Miller back when they did, I wasn't a fan of that because, again, you've got a guy who's a defensive liability when he's not playing well. And then, Pettersson's just hasn't been good. So it's like you have all these things. It's just too much to cope for and just not identifying the right players. Like you're signing Vinny Desharnais to a 2-year contract when you watched him in the playoffs be a healthy scratch for Edmonton and you thought that was a good idea instead of maybe paying Zadorov a little bit more. I don't know. I think like those are moves that's one thing I'll give this management credit for. They certainly right their wrongs, but those things certainly have not helped either. So,
and the Canucks were also a victim of the the rookie goaltending mirage. We've seen it so many times, like the Andrew Hammonds of the world, if we're going with an Ottawa perspective here, where you have this young goalie, there's no scouting report on him really, and he just goes on a high. But teams, like, this is the NHL, like teams watch video, they figure out your tendencies, and you get lit up like the Andrew Raycrofts of the world, if you'd like, right? Like Calder winning season, never even came close after that once they figured out what his tendencies and stuff were. And that's a danger zone too, with the temporary thing that you're mentioning, right? Where it's, oh, we have another goalie. Okay, Demko can be hurt. Shelovs can take over. It's like, well, but no, like that's not how that works. It's a mirage. It's a hot streak. And like in Ottawa's perspective, they traded Robin Lehner away because Andrew Hammond had that hot streak, right? And didn't work out, right? And so I think the Canucks might have put a little too much in that basket, but at least Lankinen has kind of emerged to at least provide some competency in the crease, right? So,
got to mention this trade right now. So it looks like it's Nikita Grabenkin and a first-round pick for Scott Laughton. I mean, again, the prices are pretty high this now. Troy, we haven't heard from you in a bit. What are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I feel like there was a clear need for a third-line center for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and when Ryan O'Reilly went there, he clearly didn't like all the noise surrounding the team, the city, XYZ, so he wasn't a realistic option to come back. And listen, in any other year, I don't really think that Scott Laughton would return a first-round pick, but this is a thin draft. The teams, they're willing to part ways with these futures a lot more, especially teams I think they can make a run in the playoffs. And Scott Laughton, he fits the profile of a guy he's not super big, but he's tough to play against. He's a little bit of a pest, and he can go in there and kill some penalties. I think for what it's worth, I think it's a good move for the Leafs, but I don't think it'll result in them getting a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I look at it, the idea of trading away futures and picks. A lot of teams were scared to do it. The weaker class, expected weaker class. Next thing you know, it turns into 2003 all over again. But the expected weaker class. But I think they saw how Florida built their cup team. Florida, it was the anomaly. Everybody's like, you build through the draft, you don't acquire players. And Florida said, nah, forget that. And they built their team through trades. And I think that's what a lot of teams might start to see if they can do. It's a copycat league. Every sports league is. So I wonder if that is sitting in some teams' minds. Also, you talked about the apple cart thing, Andrew. I was listening a minute ago to Brady Tkachuk's comments, and he was as choked up as you could imagine by talking about Norris being dealt. So we'll see what happens with that. But,
yeah.
Like I said, once he meets, he probably already knows Dylan. Once he meets Cousins and they get on the ice, I think that'll subside. Obviously, there's that raw emotion of a friend being moved.
Yeah, that part is a bummer. Going back to this Leafs trade, though, like, are the Flyers retaining like 75%? Leafs have under $900,000 in cap space, and Laughton makes $3 million.
I was wondering that too.
Must be like the max retention on that. And even then, I'm not sure how that quite works. But that's probably why they got the first. Oh, well, we'll pay 3/4 of his salary, and but you better give us a first-round pick.
Well, I don't know. They also, keep in mind, and I don't know how much this affects the cap, but they waived Reeves yesterday, right? So doesn't that give them some relief or no?
Not much.
I think they can write off 1.05 mil or something like that, which I guess puts them at 2 mil. But yeah, okay, that does make sense. When it comes to the Leafs, it's always funny. Like, oh, they're gonna get Rantanen, they're gonna get so they're gonna get Connor McDavid. Like, no, you're not. Like, there's a cap. Yeah. There's a cap, and you're paying Austin Matthews nearly $14 million a year. Like, you can't.
Well, and the other thing is, they better hope this no one's talking about Marner. I think it's sort of common knowledge that he will be back with the Leafs, and especially with his play in the Four Nations, you got to think now his value's even better. Like, how's that going to play out?
Back.
Yeah, no, I know, that's what I mean though. But it's like that's the risk, right? Like, it's and
Tavares will get paid roughly half next year.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that'll help some of it, but I don't think it'll help all of it for Marner, right? Like, I don't think it'll make up for what Marner's going to want. No.
No,
you think?
No. Marner definitely raised his stock with the Four Nations. So,
Yeah, no, it certainly did. Let's do a couple more minutes here, guys. Actually, we're at the top of the hour. Maybe let's do like 2 more minutes here, guys. I appreciate both of you for coming on. This has been fun. Like, it's just cool to react to all this together because I'd be DMing you guys anyways or talking about these trades anyhow on Twitter. So at least we're doing it on here. How about Andrei Kuzmenko? That's how many teams now he's gone to that has been on different teams. I like this move for LA. Kuzmenko can't play defense, but he's a fun guy to watch.
But yeah, LA's got some pretty defensively responsible forwards. They can afford to take a net loss in the defensive zone on that. Like their big problem against Edmonton last year and several years is they just couldn't score. Like like they made Connor McDavid and Draisaitl pay the price, but they couldn't capitalize in the other direction. So it seems like a fair move for them.
It seems like an LA Kings move. That's what it felt like. LA is always that team that is just quietly having a solid season. They may win around in the playoffs. I don't think they're good enough to make a deep run, but that just feels like an LA Kings move. You talked about they have Anze Kopitar. They don't need somebody a forward to come in and be a defensive type of forward. What LA misses, and maybe I'm not saying he can do it. He's not shown that he can be that guy other than his first year in Vancouver. But I'm wondering if they're hoping he can find that spark and be the scorer that they need, because as soon as LA gets to the playoffs, their scoring has dried up the last few years.
You're right, man.
They need to figure that out, and the hope is that they can do this.
Troy, we got you back. Anything of note? We got a couple trades trickling in. Obviously, the lot into the Leafs. We got the Shen and Tanev. What else? I'm trying to keep track of everything.
Say before my StreamYard absolutely crashed was I feel like the Winnipeg Jets totally missed the boat in not acquiring a second line center because Vladislav Nemesnikov, as good as he is, I feel like he profiles way closer to a third line center. But Adam Lowry's arguably like one of the best shutdown third line centers in the entire NHL. So they have one of them always playing too far up in the lineup. And I don't know what they're doing. Like, I know they probably didn't have they definitely didn't have the prospect to send back to match to compete with an offer like Colorado did. But man, was that just not the most obvious hole that team had in their lineup and they didn't address it at all?
Yeah. Well, what was the market like? Like, who could they have got? I'm just trying to think that would like fit that profile. Maybe like I didn't even know Norris was available, but then with Norris,
Casey Middlestat's on the trade block.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, isn't called but then I guess the only issue there. I don't think they're in the same division, are they? I'm trying to remember that. I'm wondering if that could be an issue. Maybe they don't want to do trades there, but that's I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But it looks like they're kind of done because they've already made, I don't know, a couple different moves here. Who hasn't made any moves? That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. I mean, Edmonton made their moves earlier. Just trying to think of some of the better teams. Washington's been a little bit quiet, but they don't really need to mess with anything, right? Because they're kind of good there. Montreal, yeah. And also I wonder, Nashville's obviously doing a lot of trading now. I wonder if there's more to go. Like, are they going to hold on to Stamkos? Like, what? Mind you, who's going to take him after what's been going on this season? So I don't know.
If I'm a Montreal player, I'm mad at management for not grabbing anybody. Like, they were supposed to be bottom 3, bottom 5 team in the NHL. They are 2 points behind Ottawa for the last wild card spot. Like, you got to reward these young guys with, like, especially now that Doc's out for the season too, right? Yeah. So that one weirds me out a little bit. Like, you don't want to sell the farm with Montreal. You're not winning the cup and you're probably not making the playoffs. But you should want to reward like the Suzukis and Caulfields of the world with like, hey, we brought in this veteran guy. We think you guys can make a run for it, right? Like, just show a little belief in your players. So if I were a Montreal fan, I'd be disappointed about that.
I did like the Jake Evans signing, though. I will say that.
Hey, that to me is a win. That's an acquiring because everybody thought he might be dealt. Keeping him is a big win. I would like to see the Blues do something, especially with Colton Parayko, being out for however long after the knee injury. I would like to see the Blues do something. They're 2 points out. Like, they're there. They are a solid team, but they have to now with Parayko out. They got to figure something out on the back end. I just don't know what they could possibly do. It doesn't seem like Philadelphia wants to deal Rasmus Ristolainen, but I think he would be a perfect type of player for St. Louis at this point. I just don't see that happening.
So you see it there, Andrew, to answer our question, 50% of Laughton's salary is being retained. So
there you go.
You were right.
One more. Have the Blue Jackets made any moves?
No, Troy. What's going on?
No, but I will say this, and it's not a coincidence. The Blue Jackets have a trade deadline show every year. As long as I can remember, they always break the news on the trade deadline show as if it's controlled. So I wouldn't be shocked that they have a move in the pipeline that no one's heard anything about. That show starts at 2:45 and goes to 4 o'clock. So like I said before, they're in not desperate need, but there's a clear need for a right-handed shot forward on the team. And as I've alluded to before, Ivan Provorov is playing fantastic this season on the right side, but he's a left shot defenseman. So I feel like they also kind of need one more right shot defenseman.
You have to reward that market and those players who have played their heart outs under unbelievable circumstances this year. It looks like they're on path for that first wild card spot, maybe even catch New Jersey with Hughes out. Like, you need to show some faith in these guys with everything that's gone on.
Yeah, and a lot of my friends always say this. We're done being the youngest team in the league. We're not that anymore. We've been that for a long time, and eventually you have to take the step. We have a ton of cap space. We have an extra first-round draft pick this year from the David Jiricek trade. And you know what? We have one of the best prospect pools in the entire NHL. You can't bring all these guys through, especially if a lot of them profile to be top 6 forwards. There's just simply not enough room. So if Don Waddell feels like there's someone that can fit the 5-year plan of the team, Alex Tuck, they could send a first-round pick and prospect and a roster player over to get it done. Because, yeah, some other teams that might be too much to give up for them, but for the Columbus Blue Jackets, with as stocked as their prospect pool is from Jarmo Kekalainen, I wouldn't be shocked if they throw out an insane offer for a player like him.
Mm-hmm. We'll be keeping tabs here, guys. We are at the top of the hour here. I want to thank all of you for coming on here. This was a lot of fun. I only want to do an hour here, but I'm sure we'll all be talking, I'm sure, in our respective DMs after
Something's
this.
Something's going to break.
Just quickly before I get out of here, just saw a report, Rick Dollywall, Carolina now targeting Brock Besser, apparently. So keep an eye on that. We'll see, because now with the Rantanen thing, that would be, Besser's got to be, I think, the next best winger on the market right now, you'd have to think, with Rantanen gone. So we'll keep tabs on that. Just quickly before we go, we'll do a quick round here. Anything you guys got coming up? Mike, we'll start with you first. I know you do a lot of gaming stuff. Oh yeah, Mike and Andrew, you guys really should link up, actually, because Mike's a big gaming guy too. So got to mention that. So
just working on it. I hopefully have something new for those who are into the Madden NFL series on EA's deal with the NFL and that chestnut coming next week. So that's basically it. You can find me, Mike Straw Media, on every social platform. And all the gaming stuff will be at insider-gaming.com. And hockey, it's all on social media right now. I'm a free agent, and so we'll see where my future holds. I'm talking with people, so maybe I'm the biggest pickup of the deadline. I don't know.
We'll see. Andrew, anything got coming up for the hockey news?
It's whenever I feel like it, but there's a lot going on right now. So watch this space in the next week or so. I should have some stuff. I've been brainstorming. Every team in the NHL has a whipping boy on their team, whether it's earned or not. And I was going to write a article in defense of Thomas Chabot. Okay. And as you know, I run my main career as an events DJ, and I just shadowed the Ottawa Senators DJ during the Sens Habs game last week, 2 weeks ago, and I'm officially on the team's call list to DJ with them. So that's really exciting for me.
Congrats, man. That's so cool.
Thanks.
So there you go. If you're at a Sens game, go to the booth and say hi to our friend Andrew if you happen to see him there. Troy, I know you do a lot of soccer stuff, but also great follow on Twitter, because I always check your shots on goal props. I followed them the other night. Didn't end up, well, one of them didn't hit, which was the Brock Besser one, but you're still very accurate at this stuff. So any props you like or anything you got coming up, let us know before we get out of here.
Yeah, 2 videos that I have that are relevant to my fantasy soccer guys. I have game week 28 waiver acquisitions coming up that are already out, and my Premier League predictions already out for game week 28. You could find me at Sleeper Man City on TikTok, where you get all that fantasy soccer content.
And that's it for me, James Lynch. I will see you guys on Wednesday for another edition of the Fanatics Hockey Show. Thanks to Mike, Andrew, Troy, Adam Martin, all for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of the deadline. We got lots to talk about on Wednesday. I'll talk to you guys soon, and appreciate you tuning in.
Thank you.